us right here on the Splash Live, we have Lindsey Goralczyk, to talk a little bit more about preparing for voting day locally in West Bloomfield. And thank you so much for your time, Lindsey, first and foremost.
Thank you for having me. How are you?
I'm doing just great. So it's very unique that we get the perspective of an election worker during this time. So first and foremost, can you describe what your training process is like leading up to the event, the day?
Yes. So most election workers come in 2 times to do 2-hour sessions of training. We review the process, like rights, and then we also talk about like scenarios to look out for. Me, I am a chairperson, so I have a much longer training session where we get more in depth in these topics. But we are very frequently training and asking questions and researching and getting in touch with this information.
Gotcha. Okay. So there's a lot of different things going on, right? We just had a presidential candidate drop out from the race. We're getting a lot of emotions get flared up with what's going on in the elections and how the candidates are, being looked at and perceived. So in that case, there's a lot of things even happening at the polls when people are going to make their vote. So are there any certain security measures being put in place to ensure the integrity of the voting process?
Yes. So first of all, anyone campaigning or trying to give campaign information cannot be within 100 feet of the precinct. They can't be inside, they can't be outside within 100 feet. So we have those barriers up. We're constantly surveilling, removing that information so people feel incredibly comfortable with, voting their own way. And don't feel any sort of pressure. That being said, you also can't wear any election memorabilia. So we'll have you either switch your shirt inside out or put a jacket over it. But we're really trained to de-escalate situations. We don't have security on premises because some people feel uncomfortable around security. So it's a very calm environment, a very relaxing environment. So
I had no idea about that. I guess I didn't necessarily think about that. You would think having security there would make people feel safe, but not thinking that some people could feel unsafe or, just maybe anxious or whatever the case may be, just being around security. So I can see both sides of it. But join us right here, election worker Lindsey Goralczyk. Excuse me if I'm saying your name wrong, if I butchered your name. But join us just talking about the perspective of an election worker as she prepares for our upcoming election day. Now, let's just say we're expecting a huge turnout, more than usual. How is that going to be handled as opposed to, a slower voter turnout?
So we had a situation like this many years ago where we ran out of ballots. And what we ended up having to do is print ballots from the e-reader printer. That was a really long and tedious process. So a lot of people still had the chance to vote, but it did keep us there a lot later and those voters a lot later. Now we've learned from our mistakes and we already pre-printed a ton of ballots. So you'll see there'll be plenty of ballots. So that won't happen again. But we still have that option, and we even got more of those also, so that if anything does happen, we'll be completely taken care of.
Yeah, I understand that. Yeah, because I can imagine going to vote and then they say they ran out of ballots. But like you say, since you experienced that, you learn how to kind of deal with that going forward from there. I want to kind of go back. Let's focus on you and your story. What ultimately made you want to even be involved in the election?
My father got me involved right out of high school. He has been a teacher his entire life. So and also a social studies teacher. So he is very educated on the importance of government and elections. So he implored that on me, made me start doing it with him. He even is in my precinct this year. So I'll be his boss, which is really sweet.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so we work together and it is a fun little day. And he is incredibly supportive of me and my growth too. So that's really wonderful. And it's just also a bonding experience for us. My brother has done it with us. My mom has done it with us. So sometimes it's, well, you'll come to an election, it's all the Goralczyks.
Nice, nice. I love to see that was taught at an early age for you from your own parents to kind of get involved. Learn the election process also. Learn about voting and our system and our, things of that nature. That's a great perspective and a great way to kind of get involved with that also. What role do you see community organizations playing in our local election process?
They are, first of all, we can't even have elections without community involvement. All of the buildings we use are either government buildings or community buildings for different religions or different like social, clubs. So any big buildings we use, they have to be big enough to hold an election at. So that would only be the people who could help us. Like, we don't do any small businesses or anything,
right.
But and we don't pay them. They are volunteers, so that's beautiful. And they also do spread the word of elections as well too, and get people out there and voting, which I think is incredibly beautiful.
That's good. So from your perspective, how would you say voter education, or how would you say being an election worker helps with voter education? Let's go from there.
So it changes constantly what you can and cannot do in elections. So being from this community and having friends and being also connected within my community, I am able to tell people what they can and cannot do. So I even told someone that you can vote absentee ballots at the precinct now. So you can get it in the mail, fill it in at home, and then come in, when that's something you would never be able to do before. And that just wasn't told to enough people. So it's really powerful that, being in connection with the community and word of mouth can be so educational.
Yes, and absolutely. And then as an election worker, you can spread that information to your relatives, your friends, and things of that nature who may not know too much about it and may have certain questions too. You're also a resource for your family and friends. So I completely understand that. Don't want to hold you up too much more, Lindsey. Last question though, what are your expectations for Election Day? How do you plan to handle everything that's expected?
It is going to be a lot of people. We're expecting a huge turnout. So don't be afraid to take advantage of early voting for the August 6th election, which won't be as big as the general election. It's going to be early voting starts July 27th. All this information is online. And then for the big election on November 5th, early voting starts on October 26th. So please take advantage of that. It's at the main library, West Bloomfield Public Library. You can come in, vote at your own leisure, and doesn't matter what precinct you're at, and just get ahead of the game and not have to worry about that. So I implore everyone to take advantage of that. It's a wonderful opportunity.
There you go. Perfect place to land a plane. We appreciate. Thanks for all that information, and more importantly, the perspective of voting on Election Day from an election worker. We appreciate you. Once again, Lindsey Goralczyk joining us on the Splash Live to talk about Election Day and the perspective from an election worker. Thank you again.
Bye. Have a great day.